Grab a drink, join the chat. Let's start the show.
Hello, 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 everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are tuned in from. This is another episode of the Happy Hour Show with your host, Lindsey Vertner. That is me. And if you are new to the show, let me tell you a little bit about who I am so you know who you're chatting with on tonight, okay? My name is Lindsey Vertner, duh. I am an award-winning peak potential strategist and transformational speaker. And what I do, what is truly my jam, my mission, my purpose, is helping high-achieving women who struggle with things like procrastination, overthinking, doubt, perfectionism, all of those limiting beliefs, is I help you to master your mindset and increase your clarity, confidence, connections, and ultimately your cash flow. So that is a little bit about what I do. And I'm so glad that you tuned in for tonight's episode of the Happy Hour Show. I'm streaming live from the Dominican Republic tonight, so you'll have to excuse any background noise. You may hear a little music playing in the background, but it's as quiet as I can get it. If you are watching live, then you already know the deal. Comment all the way live. And if you're catching the replay later on, it's okay. We still love you. Just comment replay all day. Either way, make sure you comment, love, share this video out because tonight's guest is going to be amazing. I'm going to introduce her in just 1 second, but make sure that you have your pen, your paper, because here on the Happy Hour Show, this is all about your personal development. We're always dropping nuggets that help you improve your life, help you improve your career, your spirituality, everything overall, just helping you grow and develop as a human being. And we can all use that, right? So take some notes because all the time people are catching gems. And if you're finding it helpful for you, then share this video out because you never know who on your timeline is going to need this information as well. Okay, so comment, love, share. Let me know where you're tuned in from in the comments. And remember, this is a conversation. This isn't just me and our guests. This is also you. So leave your comments, leave your questions for our guests below once you find out who she is. And again, I hope you have your drink because it is time to grab your drink and join the chat. Let me introduce tonight's guest. Her name is Clarice Cregger, aka Coach Claire. She was born and raised in Olongapo City, Philippines. She currently resides in Albuquerque, New Mexico with her husband. And Clarice is an amazing Amazon best-selling author, and she's a creative entrepreneur specializing in life coaching and professional photography. As a certified life coach, she thankfully utilizes her craft of transformational coaching with a keen focus on breaking harmful patterns and overcoming guilt and shame. And I don't know about you, but a lot of us struggle with guilt and or shame. So I hope you're tuned in for real, for real. With a compelling backstory of her own, which we'll hear more about later, Clarice is very passionate about helping women find their voice, strength, and beauty while overcoming past hurts with a backdrop of faith in God. So welcome tonight's guest, Clarice Cregger, aka Coach Claire. So we'll call her Claire all throughout the rest of the show. Come on up to the stage. Hey, Coach Claire.
Hi, everybody. Good evening, good morning, wherever you are. I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Miss Lindsey, for having me on your amazing show.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I forgot to remind the people, if you want to stay updated on future episodes, make sure that you go to bit.ly/happy updates. You see it scrolling down across the bottom of your screen. I promise I haven't been drinking yet. Um, bit.ly/happy updates. Okay, Coach Claire. Now, I know I just gave like a super small tidbit of a little bit of your background, but I want you to tell all the viewers and the listeners, like, who is Coach Claire really? Tell us about where you came from. Like, who are you? Give us the good tea. Spill the beans, girlfriend.
All right. Are you ready for this beans?
Yes.
Hello, everybody. Everybody calls me Claire. That actually came about because of just like life experiences. I decided to have a different name. Claire became like this persona that just allowed me to really embrace the whole me. So a little bit about my background. I am from Philippines originally, and I love food. I love to travel. I love music and I love reading. I am a very easygoing. Everybody calls me extra just because I love to show up and I love to, as you can tell, my earrings. I love going all in. Like I feel like as a person, for me, I love making sure that I'm always at the best that God allowed me to be. So just making sure, like, enjoying my time, being joyful around people. I love laughing. Like, there's never a dull moment when you're around me. Honestly. Yesterday we were practicing interpretive dance and there's not a one moment that we were not laughing our butts off. So I'm always all about joy. I'll tell you that.
Who are you practicing interpretive dance with?
I was practicing some with my girlfriends because it's something that we're creating for my ministry. And we were like, one of the songs that we were that was playing was about God's healing broken things. And I remember I was like turning and I'm like, yeah, he's healing my broken back. I'm like, all I heard was my back cracking. I'm like, I'm too old for this.
God healing my way. I can definitely use some back remediation.
Yeah.
So you are from Olongapo City, Philippines. I've been practicing saying that correctly. Olongapo. What was that like growing up in the Philippines as a child?
Growing up in the Philippines was both good and rough at the same time. The good part about it is that life was so simple. Like growing up in the Philippines, you don't really have a lot of like technology back in the day, right? When I'm 31 now, I mean, now there's a lot more technology and there's so grown from when I lived there. But growing up, like all the things that we could do was like literally like play music, guitar. That was like our downtime. Or if it's not that, we're playing hide and seek with our neighborhood kids. So the rough part about it was that we're always having monsoons. There's always flood. Like right now, it's flooding there in the Philippines, and houses tend to get buried. And one of those houses is usually my mom's house. So we're always growing up as a kid. We're always having to clean up after the mud and having to go through that trauma that you see, like your furnitures, your house get buried in the water, and at the same time, like there's more starving kids. There's a lot of like population that doesn't really usually get fed. And my mom tried her best growing up, but we were one of those people that struggled growing up. But in my time, like now that I'm older, I truly appreciate it because it gave me a different perspective growing up as a person that made me value like time and things differently.
Yeah, so this is so crazy that you brought up flooding of all the things and all the timing. So so we have 3 levels in our home, and our bottom level, which is one of the main living areas of our home completely flooded. Like stuff got damaged. We had to pull up the flooring, and that's where my office is. That's where our family room is. And it just did that the last week of June. And just the stress of that and trying to get everything repaired and cleaned up over this past month has been like, I'm surprised I haven't pulled out all my hair. And so hearing you say that you guys regularly had to deal with like the mud and the burying of your home, like I can only imagine what that was like.
It's so crazy because like it would happen on my birthday month. At 7 years old, let me tell you, watching your presents get flooded at 7 years old was the most devastating thing. It's like, and sometimes you get waking up in the middle of the night. My mom would wake us up, wake up, because then we get drowned because the flood comes in really fast because it's monsoon season. And then that usually lasts from like 3 months. Your house is just buried in water. And there's no light. There's no food. Like, it's like the toughest thing that people that lives in the island understand. And certain parts of the U.S., you know, that gets like flooded, like Texas, like certain parts, you know what I mean? Like that gets really intense, and like having to dry your furnitures. And like you said, the stress of having to clean that, all that, the fridge, you know, hoping to God that it still works, like your TV, like good thing my grandma had a house up above. So what we would do is we would like haul all of our stuff upstairs to my grandma's house and try to shove everything in there. And imagine 2 to 3 family living in one house.
Oh, goodness. Like, it just makes you put a lot of things in perspective, knowing that people go through this regularly and have to regularly do that cleanup every year. Because as Americans, we often, and even not Americans, but we'll say Americans, especially developed countries and then affluent communities and things like that, we take a lot of things for granted. And it's like, there's so much more in the world than just our little bubble. And you really do take things like your home and even things like walking. I know I took walking for granted, which is a whole nother story. But these little things that we're just so accustomed and used to all day, every day, and we take them for granted. And so I'm sure that helped you develop a lot of gratitude and just being present in the moment. I know you mentioned about it helped you be thankful for time and things like that. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Like the time part, it allowed me, because at the time when growing up, when you guys are all in the same house, all you have is each other, the time that you have with each other. And even though the moment is so stressful, like you hear people screaming, okay? At the age of 8, you hear your mom crying, screaming because she sees the house getting flooded in and buried, you know? But all we could do was be appreciative that the time we have, because we still made it out of the house alive. We didn't fall asleep, you know what I mean? And that we're able to still have that gratitude that even though flood is coming in, the kids are swimming in the flood, taking advantage of it like it's free beach. Like, are you like, seriously, like we'll be coming off from school and we're over there playing in the water, and my mom would be like, are you serious? Get out of the water. Like, you'll get sick from that. But just like that time, you know, like there's not enough time that you can get back. You can either stress about it or just enjoy the moment that you have, because it's as easy as that. You can get that taken away from you.
Yes.
It's just so fast. Things just happens. Like you don't even know, in a matter of 20 minutes, the house is buried in water. You know? So it's just like that time that you're able to catch up. You're able to still move your stuff, to spend time with your family. Is like so important, especially now. I don't even know how the flooded came, but I mean, I feel like what God is wanting me to speak about is the flood. I'm like, I don't even know how that came about, but okay.
Listen, and I just had a whole moment in this flood discussion. So wherever the conversation takes us, it takes us. And that's what I love about the Happy Hour show, because we never know how it's going to help the listeners and viewers. And usually the things that we think we're going to talk about is not what we talk about, but it's perfectly timed. And I love that you were like, free beach, because that's what life really is. It's all about perspective. You know, sometimes when we have things bury us in our own lives, things like debt or toxic relationships, or, you know, our dead end job that we hate, or things like that, and we feel buried, it's hard to see the good side of that. You know, they say there's a silver lining to everything, but whenever you're the one buried in the mud, it's hard for you to see the free beach that you're getting. So I love that kids were kids and they were like, yay, we got a free beach right at home now. Because
Right
that's
in your
really what
living
it
room.
is. It's a matter of shifting your perspective, you know? So I love that you brought that up. If you are just tuning in, you are watching the Happy Hour show with Lindsey Vertner. That's me, and our beautiful guest, Coach Claire. She is a transformation coach, and you see her info right there. You can find her on Instagram at Claire_Cregger. That's CLAIRE_CREGGER. And so right now we have been talking about how she grew up in the Philippines, and every year, this wasn't just randomly here, randomly there, but every year for 3 months of the year, they had to go through flooding of their house and their products and home being damaged by the flood and the mud, and, you know, just losing those things. And so we were talking about perspectives and being grateful for time and being grateful for the people that you have around us, because sometimes we get so caught up in the material things of this world and what's next and what's next and what's next that we forget to live in the what now. And so I'm sure that you had a lot of background in that, and being able to be present in the moment and grateful for the now and not so worried about the next or the past.
Yes, ma'am. And you know what's crazy is after a flood, earthquake happens usually. And that's when you start seeing like the mud come in, like a mud flash flood. You know what I mean? It's crazy because, you know, we often go through life and we get tested, and it's how you have to handle it. Yes, it was a very stressful part of growing up, but you know, like I actually had to go through that here in Albuquerque, not because it was purposeful, but the area that I was living was very low and it flooded inside my apartment. And I just remember calling my mom, I moved out of Philippines for this. Why am I having to go through this at the age of 30? Like, what is going on? And so it's just like understanding and just seeing it like as a child, it's traumatizing, but we saw it as more, like you said, like we have to have like that childlike attitude that for us, it was just like, oh, it's fun. We get to jump in it. And we didn't care what kind of diseases we get, but all we knew is free water is coming in. And it was just something new. But you hear the parents crying, screaming, people dying, like you don't even know because it's coming in so fast and it sweeps you away. And I mean, imagine if your house is 2-story, that 2-story is gone. All you have is the roof. Seriously, if you're watching the news, you'll see people sitting on their roof waiting to be rescued. And that can last up to 2, 3, 4 weeks, a month. Who knows?
Wow.
You know? And then after that, you have earthquakes, which is crazy. Like, not that you haven't gone through anything. Now let me throw some earthquakes on top of that. You know?
Over here in the comments, Keisha says, your perspective is everything. Absolutely right. And hopefully I pronounced your name correctly. If not, my apologies. But that is another good point that you made about first you had the flood, and if that wasn't enough, then comes the earthquake, because I think in life we often feel like that when we're going through stressful times. You know those sayings like, if it ain't one thing, it's another, or the saying, when it rains, it pours. It's like you have have this bad thing happen. And then right after that, you have bad thing number 2 happen. And then right after that, you have bad thing number 3 happen. And you're like, oh my gosh, I can't take any more. But the thing about being buried is that we're in the perfect position to be planted. And it's all a shift in the perspective, because seeds need dirt to grow. And you have your seed, you put it in the dirt, and the seed isn't thinking, oh my gosh, I'm buried, I'm suffocated, it's dark, it's damp, it's wet all around me, I can't see anything, I'm tired of all this dirt coming on me. A seed is thinking, oh, wait, hold on, it's dark, it's moist, I've got dirt all around me. Now I'm in the perfect position to bloom. And that's exactly what they do. And so as human beings, we have to do that same thing. We have to adjust our thinking. And instead of thinking all of these obstacles coming at us makes us buried and suffocated, we have to shift our perspective and say, wait a minute, I'm in the perfect position to bloom and blossom and grow and come out better than what I was before.
Absolutely.
If you are just tuning in, you are watching the Happy Hour show with myself, Lindsey Vertner, and our lovely guest, Coach Claire. She is here on the Happy Hour with us. Make sure you post your comments and questions below. Coach Claire will be able to answer your questions live later on in the show. But before we get to that, I hope you guys all grabbed your drink, because right now it's time for a little game that I like to call
What's in your cup?
Yes, if you are new to the show, it is time for What's in Your Cup. This is the part of the show where our guest will share what she's sipping on over there where she's located, and then she'll show off some cup cam. I will share what I'm drinking, and you at home post in the comments what you're drinking. And if you forgot to grab your drink, it's okay. Put what you wish you were sipping on, what you wish was in your cup right now, okay? So, Coach Claire, please tell us what's in your cup.
So I am actually drinking coffee. Yes, it is 7:30 at night and I'm drinking coffee. And for all of my friends who's watching, y'all know I love me my coffee. I think we could live off of coffee. And so this is what I have. I went to go try this place at my friend today. It was her birthday. So it's freshly brewed here in New Mexico from our main capital in Santa Fe. It's called Iconic Coffee. And it has the flavor of bizcochito. It's like the little New Mexico cookies that we have here. And oh my goodness. Usually I like my coffee black, but I'm like, okay, maybe I need some sleep tonight. So I'll have a decaf, please. Well, I didn't have this decaf this time. I even had an ad of espresso. So I don't know. I'll be an all-nighter tonight, I guess.
Listen, I need to get some sleep. That's what I need to do. Probably for the past couple of days, I've been on like 3 or 4 hours because we just had so many back-to-back things, plus dealing with my house and all of that stuff. But I never was a coffee drinker. Like the few times I've had coffee, it's more sugar and cream with a splash of coffee. Not black at all. It's like, wait, are you drinking milk? No, it's coffee. It's just got a lot of sugar and a lot of cream and a lot of add-ins to make it not taste like coffee. But then I'm usually still tired after I drink the coffee. And so I'm like, I don't know what is wrong with me because I'm still tired. Now I'm just jittery tired. And so I've never really been a coffee drinker.
Really? I love coffee. Coffee, like I used to get those like the jitters, but now even if at night, if I drink it, I could just fall asleep like this. I think it's because I do so much in the day that by the time at night, I'm like, nope, it don't matter. I'm going to fall asleep anyways. Like, it's crazy. My friend was like, are you sure you're going to have coffee? It's like 4 in the afternoon. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I can still sleep, girl.
That was just water for you.
It literally is. I need to start drinking more water because I drink way too much coffee. Seriously, I have like 2 to 3 cups of black coffee in a day. That's pretty bad. My mom tells me that's too much caffeine. You need to slow your roll.
Listen, so my husband, he likes coffee. And so I will often get him new coffees to try. And so there's a recent one that I got him that is infused with rum, and they have a lot of different flavors. So I have to make sure I share the site with you. And then whenever I went to Indonesia, they had a coffee that's made like with, I think it was like monkey poop or something like that. Not
What?
like regular monkeys. It was some type of critter that kind of reminded you of a monkey, but maybe it was like a squirrel monkey type of mix. I don't know what kind of critter it was, but they made it out of like the poop, but it was a real coffee delicacy. And it wasn't like poop poop. I mean, it was poop, but it wasn't. And I don't know. It was a whole thing.
Oh my goodness. See, that's one thing I would totally dig if, like, once the traveling and everything is to try different coffee. One of my favorite coffee that my friend brought was from Jamaica. And it has a different type of coffee bean that it's rich, that you don't need sugar and cream. Like you said, like, I can't do sweets anymore. I used to, now I'm like, oh man, headache. I'll just have headaches all day.
Over here in my cup, I have a nice, pretty cup because I'm in. Oh, it matches my nails.
Yes, matches your nails.
For my audio listeners, my drink is yellow with the pineapple on top, and my nails are yellow. And so over here in my pretty cup in the Dominican Republic right now, it's called Dr. Funk.
Dr.
What I'm
Funk.
drinking. Yes. And I forgot everything that is in here, but I know there's some amaretto. I know there's some cacao, cream de cow, something like that. There's like two liquors, some banana stuff, and I don't know, but it's called Dr. Funk, and I was like, I'll have one of those, and it's actually pretty good.
Is it pretty sweet?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I like sweet. Everything is sweet for me. I've got a sweet tooth. Over here in the comments, Keisha says, pineapple juice is in her cup. So we're twinsies with our yellow drinks.
I know, I was going to say she has pineapple too, and you have pineapple.
I just have a little extra party with my pineapple drink.
Yes.
And she says, that sounds good. Yes, well, it definitely tastes good. So thanks for playing along in the What's in Your Cup. Make sure you post what you wish you were sipping on if you didn't have a drink right now. Meanwhile, let's get back to this discussion. And so I know that you have your own compelling story. And so tell the viewers a little bit about that.
Sure. Where do we even begin? So as y'all know, like I said, I grew up in Philippines. So growing up in Philippines was never easy, but I'm grateful for it. Life was rough. I was raised by a single mom, and she tried her best. I still was able to go to private school, surprisingly, in Philippines. That's very rare and hard because it costs so much. Like in Philippines and third world countries, schools are not free. You have to pay for it, whether it's public or private. You have to pay for the school. So growing up, it was always a struggle. So my mom had to put me up for adoption. So I was put up for adoption at the age of 16 to my relatives. And during that time, I had a very rough time. Being separated from my family was never easy. At the age of 16, I was basically, as the oldest in our country, it's my responsibility to take care of the family. So at the age of 16, I was already working, sending money back home, taking care of my siblings, because I was like the beacon of hope for the family that's in the third world country. But on top of that, not only was I that person, I was also going through sexual abuse. And then on top of that, being homeless, like things just kind of start shifting. I met my husband. We got homeless. We were homeless in New Mexico for a long time, staying in homeless shelters and then going through addiction, like, and then on top of that, losing my job. My husband lost his job, and everything just catapulted into, we got married young at 19. I mean, at 19 years old, we were already married, and my husband wanted to do the right thing. So he married me because it was like he didn't want to live with me unmarried. So we did. But, we're both kids. We were still growing up. Like I didn't ever had a good model for what married people really look like. And as well as he. So it was like we were learning off of movies, off of, we don't even know what, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, trying to figure out ourselves, like, what does a husband and wife really do? Besides like the great parts about intimacy, there's more than that. And things just got harder, like we were growing, but we were growing apart. Like, and then that's when me and my husband kind of separated for at least 2 years. We went through our little phase in our marriage. And that was when I had my identity crisis. That was when life really shifted from me, because not only my abandonment issue came about, that my dad left me, I was going through that sexual abuse. And then at the same time, my husband left, like everything just catapulted into, I feel unworthy, that nobody wants me. That how can the last person that supposedly I looked at as my saving grace left me? Like my identity went out of the door. I didn't even know who I was anymore, because all I knew is that the moment I was adopted was like, here's a blueprint for you. Here's what you're going to do. You have nothing to say so. You're going to do exactly what we said, and this is what you're going to do. And I had no identity. I had no room for growth for myself. Like, yes, there was a lot of things that allowed me. I mean, I'm able to speak English now because of it, because I was hounded to make sure I learn English properly, to make sure that I'm able to provide for the family. But on top of that, it was like, I don't know who I was. I didn't even know what I really liked. I never drove the freeway. Okay. At the freeway, because my husband drove me everywhere. And so I was always afraid. I didn't want to do anything. So that stemmed into now what? Wanting to kill myself. So I went to a severe depression. I did not want to clean. I felt like, why am I even cleaning for? Nobody's coming home anyways. I did not want to cook anymore. I ate McDonald's for an entire year, girl, because I refused to cook, because I'm like, who am I cooking for? So I had no love for myself, and then that one night, all I remember is I'm in the house, in the bathroom. I had everything ready, and I was like, that's it, God, I'm going to do it. I can't do this anymore. The pain was so surreal that I'd rather it to like disappear and end, because I just don't want to deal with it anymore. Right. That was when the shift took place. It was like, I remember hearing voices. Like, it's so intense when you're in that specific moment. Like, it takes such a toll on you. And that one moment, I just remember running out of my house, and I called my friend and I said, I need you to come over, because if you don't come over now, you're not going to find me alive. And so she came over. She was like, I packed that entire house, and I'm like, I cannot stay here. I'm like, if I stay here, I'm not going to last one more day. Because that was the house we've had. Like, so many memories was like flashing to my head, like you come home and that it's just yourself now. You have nobody there. So it was like, it was like so intense but then when all of that was like my breaking point. I moved out of that. I started finding myself. That's when I started developing my personal, my identity, finding my identity in him, and finding information regarding to what I needed to do, and figuring out like myself. I started seeing girls on Instagram. I'm like, oh, hiking looks fun. I remember asking my friend, I'm like, let's go hike. I'll drive. She's like, I don't know. You've never even driven in the freeway. But like, I started facing my fear, the fear of doing things by myself. I couldn't even walk in the grocery aisle, girl, without losing it, without crying, because it was like, everything was turning into misery for me. I can't even go buy a broccoli without losing it in the vegetable section, because all of the replay that was happening in my head. And it took one change of perspective. It took me back to like how I was talking about the flood, that it's like I had to shift, because at the same time, I'm like, I cannot live like this, because there's has to be something more than this. So I started doing adventures. I started hiking. I like seek like the fear. I almost seeked it. Like I hike by myself. My friends will tell me like, you are crazy. Why are you hiking by yourself? I remember making a Snapchat. I'm like, hey, everybody, I'm just going to tell you where I'm going to be at. I'm about to lose signal here. And my mom would freak out. She's like, what are you doing? You're trying to be like a daredevil over there, like seeking your fear. I'm like, I have to face it. So I know that even though I was fearful of it, there's nothing to fear about.
Mm-hmm.
What am I fearing for exactly?
And that's a good point because, you know, faith and fear can't live in the same house. So you're feeding one or you're feeding the other. And unfortunately, many of us, we feed fear and it holds us back from reaching our dreams. It holds us back, you know, from the things that we want to do. It keeps us stuck in these cycles of guilt, in these cycles of shame, in these cycles of whatever it is that we're going through. So you mentioned a lot of things in that. And I love that you said seek the fear, because fear and excitement, like, they come from the same place and you tell it what it is. So when you're feeling those jitters and those emotions inside of your belly, in your body, you're feeling your sweaty palms and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared. That's your brain feeding the fear. And so instead you have to say, I'm not scared. I'm taken care of. I am protected, and I am excited for what's to come, because a lot of times we fear the unknown and that paralyzes us in our comfort zone, and we become complacent and comfortable in our chaos, and then we end up with these situations that are the perfect breeding grounds for depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, and all of those things. And so we have to like be able to seek the fear, like you said, and move past it. So I love that you said that. What advice would you give to the viewers or listeners that may be in that space right now? How did you begin to move out of it? I know you said that you sought out the fear and things like that, but what advice would you give to the viewers?
Sure. I actually talk about that on my book. There's 4 steps that I learned from it during that seeking of fear. And like, I became like a thrill seeker. You know what I mean? First thing is to release, let it go. Like, what is the worst possible thing that can happen if you let it go? You know, and once you've letting it go, like, what was the lesson behind it? Like, why were you holding on to it? And how did it feel when you have letting it go? You know, seeking for help. It is okay to not be okay. You know, the society makes us feel like we are like, we're like this like broken like person because we're not feeling okay right now. Like, that is an absolute like, no. It is okay to not be okay right now. You have to allow yourself to grieve the old you to get to the new you. You know, so once you have released it, once you have reflected, now it's time for you to start over. I always say to my clients, like, think about like a blank canvas. You just got given a second chance. Now it's time for you to repaint exactly how you wanted it. You know, now it's time for you to learn and live the new lessons you've learned. You know, once you have let go of that, time to restart, start over, and be okay starting over, because you might be surprised knowing that you were able to overcome all of that. Another big thing that I would tell you is to date yourself. Absolutely. Date yourself. When was the last time you've actually taken yourself out? You know, like I was so afraid of being alone. So guess what I did? I went to movies by myself, even though that means I'm crying in the movie. I don't care. I still went and did it because it gave me that confidence in myself that, you know what, it's not that bad. Like, I don't know what the heck was I crying about. Like, nice. You know what I mean? Like, there's days like I would go to like Cheesecake Factory. I'm all dressed up by myself. And everyone's like, what are you doing, Claire? Like, aren't you like, why are you doing it? Are you like sad? I'm really worried about you. I'm like, no, I'm just treating myself because that's exactly how I should be. You know, I need to be able to love me in order for me to love others. because I can't. I'm not whole right now. So I would definitely say date yourself. Absolutely.
And that is a great point because I know sometimes I hear people talk about, well, I don't like being alone. And it's like you need to explore why it is that you don't like being alone and, figuring out who you are and all the things that encompass who you are and what you're destined and meant to be. And so if you are listening or watching right now and you're one of those people where you're like, I hate being alone, please explore that. Please identify why it is that you hate being alone. Just like Coach Claire just said, she didn't used to like being by herself, but she got over that. And now she's this beautifully phenomenal woman that does all these things and doesn't allow fear to stop her. And so usually whenever we are in that space where we don't want to be alone, there are some deeper issues that we aren't exploring, that things that we may have been traumatized by in our past life that makes us not want to be alone. We may feel unsafe, or we may have issues with abandonment that we didn't even realize. And so it's definitely important to be able to sit with yourself, even for the extroverts out there, because I'm an extrovert. Like I need people, I need to interact, I need to engage and be social. I like to do those things, but at the same time, I love to have my me time and just be by myself so I can remember who I am and not get lost in the sauce, because society is always trying to tell us who we are. Like how you said when you were adopted, like they told you who you were, and then you had to make sure you learned English so you could provide for the family, so that your mother, said, here, you got to do this so that you can take care of this. And then you had your husband driving you around. And so whenever we don't know who we are, it's easy for other people to place their expectations on us. So I absolutely love that you said that. If you're just tuning in, you're watching the Happy Hour Show with myself, Lindsey Vertner, and our lovely guest, Coach Claire. She is a transformation coach, and you can find her on Instagram at Claire_Cregger, Cregger. And so absolutely love that you said that. And I noticed that you mentioned about you felt unworthy and you were struggling with things like abandonment. So what advice would you give to the viewers or listeners who maybe don't know that they're struggling with abandonment or feelings of unworthiness? What are some of those key factors to help them identify that within themselves?
The one thing I always say is to journal. Journaling your emotions and being aware of how you react on things. Because when you're in denial, you tell yourself there's nothing wrong with you. No, I'm okay. I'm not afraid of that, until you are pushed into the corner and you have nothing else but to face yourself. Are you able to face yourself alone in a task at hand that's scary? Or are you going to rely on people to be there for you at your beck and call 24/7? Like feeling that unworthiness, it's like one of the most toxic thing, because we are putting our worth on other people's hands. We are putting our worth in other people's hands. It's like we're giving them the authority and the power to describe who we are. Instead of doing that, look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself, my goodness, look at me today. I look nice. You know what I mean? Like, talk to yourself. Like, that's why I said it's the most important thing. People laugh at me that when I tell them, I'm like, did you even talk to yourself today? Did you tell yourself you look nice? Look at that bum. I worked out on that. You know what I mean? Like, even though it's the most silly and cheesiest thing, they matter, because your subconscious needs to hear that. Because if not, the doubt that you have in your head is there starts going to playing scenarios on your head, and then next thing you know, you think like, well, shoot, nobody wants to hang out with me. He's wanting to do this, and then that's when everything starts falling in, and then next thing you know, you're like a hot mess, and then now you're angry at people because you're not getting invited. You know what I say to that? Girl, you are the show. You are the show.
Okay.
To be invited, you create the party. Like, you do not need people to make you feel special. You're special already. You're just coming in there to bring in the show. Hello, everybody. That's why I said it's never a dull moment for me because, for the longest time I had to fight for that because I always felt outcasted. Because again, there's that I'm adopted, I'm not from here, I did not have a college degree, I'm still trying to finish it. Like all of that gets to you. So just remembering that it's like you are the show. You do not need people to invite you. If you feel that way, find that root. Why are you feeling that way? Who made you feel that way? And write it down in your journal.
Yes, over here in the comments, Keisha says, writing things down is always good because you get to see it and know how it really affects you. And that is so true. I talk with my clients about the importance of writing things down because a lot of times in today's world, we're so electronic focused and we have our electronic alarms, our electronic planners, our electronic diaries, and all these things. And I'm like, even if you are an avid electronic user, and you type up all the notes in the world, there is still an exchange that happens in your brain when you physically take your hand and pick up a pen or pencil and write it down on paper. The difference that it makes in whatever it is that you're writing, the emotions that flow through that, like there's science behind writing things down with your hand. So even if you don't like to write or you don't like to journal, it's still important to put yourself in that space because you don't get that same emotional exchange on the inside as you do whenever you are typing it with electronics or typing it out on your phone. So very, very important. She also says, Keisha, I've written things down as tears are streaming down my face. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. You got to. It's so important to write things down. So what tips would you share for those that are in that journaling process? What are some journal prompts that they can use to start to explore who they are?
Wow, that's a great question. That is a great question. For my girls and boys or men that is watching, you do not need to have a specific format. Just write. Just write. Even if you feel like you can't write anything, write it down. I have nothing to write. That is writing. Seriously. Often what I tell my clients or my friends, who do you want to write yourself to? Do you want to write your future self? Or do you want to write your past self? Or do you want to write to God? Like for me, what helped for me at the time when I was having that situation, I would write to my husband because we weren't talking. So it allowed me to express my emotion. Like to my husband, I don't understand how it happened. Like it allowed me, because it's like I was talking to myself. I'm not really telling it to him. I'm asking me, you know? And then now in my current situation in my life now, I write it to myself. Clarice, how did you feel today? How did that made you feel? Why did you feel that way? Or like, God, dear God, today I feel awful. You know, just being raw, because the paper itself, your journal, okay, your journal is the most sacred conversation you will have with yourself. You need to keep that in private, because that is like legitimate your emotions. That is when you get to release everything. If you're angry, show you're angry. Draw on it. Whatever the heck you want to do it. You know, like I said, if you're mad, show that you're mad. If you're crying, cry on the paper. Like seriously, I have had pages that I'm like, man, I must be really having a day. I'm like, oh my goodness, why is it all crinkled? But like having that allows you the vulnerability that you need to let go of things so that you can make room for the right things in your heart.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know one time I've told a client before, like, if you still can't think of a word to say, just scribble. Just like grab a pen and scribble and see what happens when you start to scribble. And what ended up happening is that She thought it was silly, but I often have to tell them, like, trust the process. You might not understand what I'm telling you to do, but trust the process. And she ended up scribbling, like, I don't know how many papers, and she ended up scribbling so hard it was going through the papers, and there was so much anger and frustration and built up things that she didn't realize that she wasn't expressing that came out in the scribble. And so just right. I love that you said you do not need to have a specific format. Coach Claire says just right. So if you are just tuning in, we are nearing the hour of the happy hour show with myself, Lindsey Vertner, and our lovely guest, Miss Coach Claire. You can find her on Instagram at Claire_Cregger. And I know that you have your book. And so I want you to tell the folks about your book. I'm going to put where they can get the book on the screen right now. For my audio listeners, you can get her book at bit.ly Broken but Beautifully Made book. All right. So tell us about this book. Yes.
So the book is actually, this book is like my child, seriously. It is something that I have been working on for 2 years, and it took a lot of courage finally for me to release it. And in the book, I talk about more of my story. And not only do I talk about my story, I talk about the lessons that I learned in that story and how that can be applied to yours. The book is not just for women, it is for both genders, men and women, because in here I teach you and I show you how you find beauty in your brokenness. You know, it's all about that perspective. Again, I'm all about that motivation, the empowering, and just changing your outlook. You know, like, when you're able to find a beauty, even despite of things that you've done may have been done to you, it changes you. It changes the people around you, you know? And so in my book, I talk about the 4 steps, how to find beauty in your brokenness and goal setting. These actually has like journal prompts, because that is my goal, is to allow you, right? I'm all about releasing and reflecting. What is the lesson? So in every single chapter, you get to reflect on the things that you just read. And how does that make you feel? You know, how does that reflect on your life? Because we go through so much. Like, there were so much things that went through in my life that I'm thankful I even made it to 31. You know, I'm thankful that I'm even able to do what I do now, because you always have a choice. Always. So
absolutely. Look at that. And isn't that cover beautiful in and of itself? Put that cover. Give it some nice. Yes. And that's you on the cover, right?
Yes. So if you notice, the book itself, the cover is actually an actual broken house, and it's supposed to signifies like my brokenness starting from childhood. And the beauty part, which is me, because I'm still able to find the beauty despite of everything that's broken that's going around me. So that's kind of like the whole entire thing. So I am so excited. I actually have a women's empowerment group on my Facebook too, and it's called Broken But Beautifully Made. So if you want to join, you are able to.
Yes, make sure you put that link in the comments there. Join her Facebook group. It's called what? Broken? Say it again.
Broken But Beautifully Made, just like how the book is.
Broken But Beautifully Made on Facebook. You can join that group if you are a lady. Also, you can order your copy of the book at bit.ly/broken but beautifully made book. Okay, and make sure you capitalize the beginning of each new word for my audio listeners. Broken but Beautifully Made book. So listen, I always hate whenever we are close to the hour, but I have a signature question that I have to ask all of my happy hour guests. Here we are on season 3, and the question is for everyone, because I am all about creating your first class life. And for those of you who don't know what that means you are intentional about the quality of life you are creating for yourself, because you can't buy it. Other people can't give it to you. You have to be the creator of how you want to design and live your life. And so you're intentional about creating happiness in every moment that you can, like how she had a free beach as a kid when really it was a flood. Have to be intentional about creating that happiness. It's about being intentional about shedding away the mask that we put on each and every day. Those masks of fear, those masks of doubt, those masks, that hold us back from who we're truly destined to be, from living in our God-given purpose and leaving that living legacy behind. It's about being boldly and authentically you, flaws and all. So, in saying all of that, I have to ask all of my happy hour guests, how do you intentionally create happiness for yourself?
That's a great question. The first thing that I always do is I look at how far I've come along, to know that I am no longer there, and to know that if I am able to make this much difference in just a matter of 2 years, I cannot even imagine how much more I can make a difference in the next 3 years. And just the little miraculous things that I'm able to touch people's lives and build friendship, like that makes me happy. Just to know that it's like, oh my goodness, I have sisterhood everywhere. And it's just like building global relationship. Like I'm able to have conversation with you, like that to me is like, I'm just like up and awe. Like that really makes me happy, just waking up and just knowing that it's like, wow, I didn't just wasted time.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I love it. Listen, do you have any final words for the viewers or listeners on the Happy Hour show tonight?
Sure. The one thing, if I could just leave as an encouragement, it just know that you always have a choice, and that always choose you, because at the end of the day, you are the most important person in here. You are no good to nobody if you cannot even choose you. And just all the way.
Yes, perfect words to end on. If you're just tuning in, you missed it. But it's okay. You can always catch the replay and comment replay all day, okay? Make sure you do that. Go back and watch the replay and still comment, love, share this video out. Make sure that you contact and follow Coach Claire. Tell them where they can connect with you.
Yes, you can absolutely find me everywhere. You can find me on Facebook and on Instagram, on YouTube as well. You can find it under Claire_Cregger. Again, you can follow my Facebook women's empowerment group. It's called Broken But Beautifully Made. We actually have our 3rd annual Women's Empowerment Conference coming up, so stay tuned and join. There is so many great things ahead. So I'm just, again, thank you again, Miss Lindsey, for having me. This is such an awesome opportunity.
Absolutely. And also, don't forget to order your book, Broken But Beautifully Made. You can do that at bit.ly/broken but beautifully made book. And last but not least, if you want to stay tuned on all things Happy Hour, then make sure you sign up for updates. You can do that at bit.ly/happy updates. That's bit.ly/happy updates. And sometimes our guest gives our viewers a special VIP happy hour special, but you got to be on the VIP list to get those things. So make sure, again, you sign up at bit.ly/happy updates. We are here every single Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, and some bonus Thursdays like this coming Thursday. So you'll see me in 2 days. I'll be I'll be streaming live on location again from the DR this Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Same time, same place this Thursday. Other than that, make sure you're tuned in every Tuesday with some of our bonus Thursdays. And with that said, my name is Lindsey Vertner. And I pray that you are living your first class life. Okay. And so, with that said, I will catch you this Thursday and Tuesday and every other Tuesday. Have a great evening, guys. Bye.
Bye.